I never told anyone what really happened in that kitchen. Not my boyfriend, not my therapist, not even Emily. People say memory fades over time, that trauma softens at the edges. That's a lie. Some moments burn themselves into you like acid, clear and permanent. I was 16 when it happened, but this morning at 23, I woke up sweating like I was still there. Back in the kitchen. Back under the fluorescent light that buzzed just a little too loud. Back on the cold tile floor, my wrists pinned by my father's hands, my mother whispering affirmations like a mantra while holding down my legs, and my sister Emily, my perfect, flawless older sister. She stood above me, gripping a syringe in her manicured hand. Her voice shook, but her words were sharp. Better dead than plain. That sentence echoes. Better dead than plain. She believed it. So did they. That being ordinary was worse than death. They called it an enhancement injection, a beauty booster, something to bring my femininity into alignment. But I knew what it was. Unprescribed hormonal modifiers mixed in our garage fridge by a consultant my parents paid in cash. They wanted me to be camera ready, pageant pretty, influencer material. I refused. That morning I had finally said no. After years of being weighed, measured, filtered, photoshopped, and scheduled into someone I didn't recognize, I finally said no. They held me down anyway. It did not work out the way they wanted. I escaped through the side door barefoot in a tank top stained with vitamin shake. I ran past our trimmed hedges and down the manicured cul-de-sac screaming until someone's Ring camera caught it all. That footage never went public. The neighbors whispered. The police were called. But nothing stuck. My family had influence. Appearances were maintained. What they could not contain was me. I built a life far from them. I teach art to kids who think plain is beautiful. But the truth of that day still breathes beneath my skin. This is not a story of revenge. It is a story of survival. And it begins the moment my sister tried to erase me to save the brand our parents built out of her bones and mine. My name is Gina Walker. I am 23 now. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment above a bakery in Portland, Oregon. I teach art to middle school kids and spend weekends painting in a shared studio with 3 other women who all left home before they turned 18. We laugh a lot. We cry a little. We keep emergency wine in a locked cabinet next to the paint thinner. I do not talk much about where I came from, but for you to understand what happened, you need to know who we were supposed to be. My parents, Jonathan and Celeste Walker, were not famous in the celebrity sense. They were influential in the kind of way that makes people flinch when their names appear in emails. They ran a boutique PR firm in Seattle specializing in personal branding. Politicians, lifestyle influencers, CEOs with bad headlines to clean up. They built images for a living and they built us the same way. Emily, my sister, is 19 months older than me. She was the prototype. Blonde hair like spun gold, green eyes that sparkled under ring lights. She could smile on cue pose from instinct speak in a tone that made people trust her without knowing why. She won her first beauty pageant at 6, starred in a vitamin ad at 8, and had a verified Instagram account before she turned 12. My parents called her a miracle of media management. I was the beta version. Dark hair, quiet. I liked to draw. I asked too many questions. I did not take direction well. They called me their little challenge in interviews, always with a chuckle that sounded like a threat. Emily and I shared a bathroom, a wardrobe, and a carefully curated social calendar. Every outfit we wore was documented. Every calorie we consumed was logged. Our home was a showroom. There were no family photos on the walls, just framed magazine covers and brand campaign proofs. My father measured our posture during dinner. My mother weighed us every Sunday morning and plotted the numbers on a shared graph in the pantry. Emily never flinched. I gagged often. At school, teachers praised Emily for poise. They called me intense. Emily was invited to speak at teen leadership summits. I was told to stop drawing dark things in my sketchbook. At 14, I was enrolled in a charm course against my will. It included walking with books on my head and smiling while refusing dessert. At 15, I was told to lose 7 pounds in 6 weeks for a mother-daughter photo shoot. I tried. I failed. The photos were never published. At 16, I stopped trying. That was the year everything fell apart. That was the year Emily started working with someone my parents called a bioimage strategist. He was not a doctor. He had a PhD in aesthetic anthropology and offered private consultations to high-income families with image goals for their children. He gave Emily supplements, shots, routines. She thrived under it. Her skin glowed. Her waist slimmed. Her social media exploded. My parents wanted the same for me. I said no. For a while, they acted like they understood. Then came the morning with the syringe. The morning everything beautiful turned monstrous. But before we get there, you have to see the machinery, the rituals, the polish over pain. Because none of this happened in a dungeon. It happened in a 3-story craftsman with a white fence and lavender bushes, and a home is where the heart is sign above a kitchen where my sister once tried to inject me to make me more marketable. We lived in Richmond, one of those affluent Seattle suburbs where lawns are manicured, dogs are groomed weekly, and the coffee shop knows your order before you step through the door. Our house was on a quiet cul-de-sac lined with maple trees and pastel-painted homes, the kind of neighborhood that made people believe everything inside must be just as perfect. Our house had 3 levels, 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a home gym, a media room, and a kitchen designed for filming lifestyle content. My parents were obsessed with perception. They believed branding was everything. They branded themselves as progressive, wellness-driven, family-oriented professionals. In reality, they were control artists. Nothing in our lives was spontaneous. Every action had optics. Every word had subtext. From the outside, we were aspirational. Inside, it was all maintenance and manipulation. By the time I turned 12, I understood that love in our family came in the form of metrics. Weight, body fat, percentage, skin clarity, posture scores, follower counts. Everything was measured. Every Sunday was self-review day. My mother would lay out folders for each of us at the dining table like it was a quarterly business meeting. Inside were printouts of our progress. Emily always got green circles. I got red marks and suggestions. At first, I thought if I just worked harder, I could be like her. But Emily didn't work harder. She complied better. She internalized it, became it. She believed being adored meant being flawless. She believed plainness was failure. I think that's when the fear began to grow in her. She couldn't afford to fall behind, so she pushed herself. She pushed me. My father kept a whiteboard in the laundry room titled Weekly Goals. Mine often said things like smile more convincingly or improve eyebrow shape. At school, teachers noticed but did not question it. My parents had charm, money. They hosted school fundraisers and sponsored the new arts wing. The counselor once pulled me aside after I skipped lunch for the 4th day in a row. I said I was fine. She smiled, handed me a flyer about nutrition, and told me how proud she was of my mother's last TED Talk on curated motherhood. No one saw us clearly. They saw the performance. Every week, my parents filmed short family videos for their firm's brand series. We rehearsed lines about gratitude, success, and values. One year, I said I wanted to be an artist. The clip was cut. I was told to say designer instead. More profitable. Less sad. Emily was a natural on camera. She spoke in sound bites. I always looked away from the lens. Our home was wired with smart mirrors that scanned our skin and gave real-time feedback. Our diets were customized. No sugar, no gluten, no dairy, protein powder in smoothies, weekly colonics. I was 16 when the injections entered the picture, not medical ones. Image enhancers. Hormone blends that adjusted estrogen levels, boosted skin tone, reduced water retention. They were experimental, imported, and administered under the table. Emily started them first. My parents watched her transform. They praised her glow, her discipline, her upgraded femininity. I was told it was my turn. I resisted. I started skipping doses, flushing capsules, faking log entries. Emily noticed. She warned me. She said I was making them nervous. I laughed. She didn't. She said if I didn't fix myself, they would. She wasn't threatening me. She was afraid for me. In her eyes, plainness meant vulnerability. She believed that if I stayed like I was, they would erase me. That was the atmosphere we lived in, a system so polished it hid its rot, a family so image-obsessed they couldn't see their daughters anymore. Only products. And I was the defective one. Not broken, just inconvenient. They didn't hate me. They believed they were helping me. and that made it so much worse. Because when the moment came when I was on the floor and Emily was above me with that syringe, she wasn't angry. She was scared. She thought she was saving me. From myself. From irrelevance. From being forgotten in a world that only remembered the beautiful. She said better dead than plain, and she meant it. Not as a threat, as a prayer. The weeks leading up to that morning were the slow kind of disaster you do not notice until something catches fire. It started with small things. My mother adjusted the mirrors in our shared bathroom so they showed our faces from slightly higher angles. My father installed new lighting in the hallway that washed out shadows and made our skin look more dewy. Emily's wardrobe was updated to all white and blush tones. Mine was edited quietly. Anything dark, loose, or textured disappeared. In their place appeared fitted pastels and glossy lip stains. When I questioned it, my mother told me I was being dramatic and that I should be grateful they cared. That word stuck in my throat like spoiled fruit. Grateful. I was 16 and being told to change the way I walked because I carried my shoulders too square. I was told to sleep on my back to avoid facial asymmetry. I was told to film my smile and review it daily. My protests were labeled resistance to self-improvement. My silence was called mood instability. My sketchbooks were confiscated after a therapist hired by my parents deemed them dark and non-feminine. That therapist visited our house twice a week and rarely looked me in the eye. He told my parents I was struggling with internalized fear of womanhood, that I needed chemical support to unlock the version of me they had imagined. Emily nodded through it all. She had begun taking her shots with calm, practiced ease. She called them focus enhancers. I called them obedience. I still remember the smell that morning. Grapefruit cleanser and synthetic vanilla from the protein shake I had refused to finish. I had just come downstairs in a hoodie that did not fit their brand colors. My mother stopped me mid-step and smiled too wide. My father stood behind her already holding the folder. I recognized it, the intervention script. I backed away. They closed the distance. Emily stepped in from the dining room syringe already in her hand and said my name like she was trying to wake me from a dream. I froze. My father grabbed my arms. My mother moved behind me. Emily raised the syringe. I thrashed. I screamed. I hit someone's shoulder. My elbow caught a glass and it shattered. They pinned me to the floor like I was a broken machine needing recalibration. And then came her voice. Better dead than plain. It didn't sound cruel. It sounded desperate, like she was trying to save something that was slipping away. I don't know how I got loose. I only remember running, through the side door, across the lawn, down the street. I ran until my feet bled and my lungs burned, and I realized no one was chasing me, because they didn't think I was escaping. They thought I was rejecting a gift. That was the part that shattered me the most. They believed they were helping. They believed that pinning me down and injecting me against my will was love. Necessary. Compassionate. I made it to the community center at the edge of our neighborhood and collapsed on the front steps. A janitor found me, called 911. An ambulance came. The hospital called my parents. They arrived calm, composed, already rehearsed. They said I had experienced a mental break, that I was unstable, that I had been under stress. They presented emails from the therapist, data from smart mirrors, vitals from biometric trackers. They painted me as a crisis, and the hospital believed them. Because my parents were practiced, because I did not look hurt, because trauma does not always leave bruises. I spent 72 hours in psychiatric observation. Emily visited once. She brought a smoothie. She did not say much. She cried when I refused to drink it. She said she missed me, said she didn't know what else to do, said our parents had a plan for everything except resistance. I told her she looked tired. She told me I looked plain. We stared at each other through a glass wall and did not say goodbye. They released me on a Thursday afternoon with a folder full of follow-up recommendations and a prescription I never filled. My parents picked me up in silence. The car smelled like lavender and leather. Emily sat in the front seat, sunglasses too big for her face, holding a tote bag with branded supplements and a change of clothes. I didn't speak. Neither did she. At home, they acted like it hadn't happened. Dinner was grilled chicken and steamed spinach. They asked about my favorite classes and upcoming exams. My mother complimented my skin tone. My father mentioned a new nutritionist. Emily said nothing at all. I went to my room and stared at the ceiling for hours. I knew then I had two choices: stay and disappear, or leave and risk everything. I chose the latter. That night I messaged Alex. He had been my lab partner 2 years before. Now he was running a small blog about youth identity and family control systems. I told him everything, not because I trusted him, but because I needed someone outside the bubble to see me. He responded within minutes. We made a plan. I began documenting everything. I collected screenshots, audio snippets, calendar invites, and supplement packaging. I wrote everything down in a notebook I kept inside a hollowed-out skincare box. I used an old phone to record conversations. I copied emails from my mother's laptop when she forgot to log out. It took a month. During that time, I smiled. I performed. I took the shakes and spit them into the sink. I let Emily style my hair. I let my father weigh me. I nodded at every word from their mouths. I pretended to be willing. But every day I sent files to Alex. Every night I saved proof. Then came the opportunity. My parents were invited to a 3-day branding summit in Los Angeles. They would be gone. Emily was supposed to come with them, but decided to stay behind for a campaign shoot. They left on a Thursday morning. That afternoon, I emptied my savings, packed a backpack, and walked out. I took a bus to Portland and stayed with Alex and his roommate in a 1-bedroom apartment above a vegan pizza place. For the first time in years, I slept without a mirror in my room. I cried through the first week. I felt like I had amputated something, not a limb, an entire reality. Alex was patient. He showed me how to organize the files into a case. He introduced me to a lawyer who specialized in coercive family systems. She read through everything and said I had enough to file for a protective order. I hesitated. Part of me still believed they could change, that they had meant well, that Emily might wake up and leave too. But the lawyer showed me the legal trail: unlicensed hormones, false psychiatric statements, medical fraud, emotional coercion. She said I wasn't the only one, that this happened more than anyone wanted to admit, that most people never escaped. I signed the papers. The lawyer filed the case quietly. A court date was set. My parents were served a summons through certified mail. That night, they called me 32 times. I didn't answer. Emily called twice, then sent a text. It said, "I understand." I didn't know what that meant. A week later, she showed up at the Portland apartment. She looked thinner, paler. She wore jeans instead of curated dresses. Her nails were unpainted. She asked if she could come in. She said she brought nothing but questions. We sat on the floor and she asked if I hated her. I said no. I asked if she still believed what they taught us. She said she didn't know. She said the silence after I left was worse than the noise before. She said the house felt like a set with no script. I told her the script was broken. She said she wanted to write a new one. We stayed up all night. She told me things I had suspected but never confirmed. That she had been promised a modeling contract if she kept her metrics perfect. That she had panic attacks every time she ate solid food. That she dreamed of shaving her head and moving somewhere no one knew her face. I told her she could. That she was allowed. That we both were. The next morning, she called our lawyer. Said she wanted to testify, said she had emails, said she was done being perfect. That was the beginning of the real escape, not the leaving, the truth-telling, the naming of things, the refusal to be silent. I did not feel free yet, but I felt less alone. The court proceedings were sealed to protect our identities, but word spread anyway. In communities like ours, silence is thin and curiosity is currency. Neighbors whispered. Former friends unfollowed us. Some family members sent messages filled with disappointment and shame, thinly veiled as concern. My parents launched a counter-narrative. They claimed I was mentally unstable, manipulated by outsiders, resentful of my sister's success. They paid for a PR firm to scrub search results and generate positive stories about Emily's accomplishments. But the court did not care about optics. The judge looked at the documentation, at the medical statements, at the testimony Emily offered, and granted both of us a restraining order. Our parents were legally barred from contacting us for 2 years. It should have been a victory, but it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff watching the land crumble behind you. Emily moved in with me and Alex. The apartment was cramped, chaotic, underfunded, and beautiful. We started to unlearn. We got therapy, real therapy, the kind that did not come with a branding strategy or end goal. Emily began journaling. She stopped wearing makeup. I started painting again, large, messy canvases filled with color and grief and silence. We lived slowly. We cooked meals with butter and bread and no measuring scales. Emily cried the first time she ate spaghetti without guilt. I cried when I saw her laugh with her mouth open. The project started almost accidentally. Alex posted a thread on his blog using pieces of our story. He kept our names anonymous, called it the Plain Files. The post went viral. Comments poured in from others who had lived similar lives, daughters of image-obsessed families, sons groomed for political futures, children who had been shaped, sculpted, branded until they forgot what their own voices sounded like. Emily and I decided to build something from that momentum. We created the Plain Project, a nonprofit art and storytelling initiative for young people raised in coercive image environments. We offered workshops, peer support, legal advice. We taught them how to draw, how to speak, how to say no. The first event had 12 attendees, the next had 50. Within 6 months, we were hosting weekend retreats. Local news picked it up, then national outlets. Interviews followed. We spoke on podcasts, at universities, at youth centers, not as victims, as people who had clawed their way back to personhood. I watched Emily change not into someone new, but into someone real. She cut her hair, dyed it dark, wore mismatched clothes, and took selfies where she did not pose. I felt proud of her, proud of us. Our parents did not stay silent. They launched a new campaign branding themselves as misunderstood advocates of excellence. They released a book, held webinars, claimed the Plain Project was a smear effort led by bitter children. They said they had been sabotaged, that we were exaggerating, that we would regret it. We did not respond. We did not need to. The truth had its own legs. Then they escalated. They opened their own center in Seattle called Refinement Academy. It was marketed as a place for high-potential youth to unlock their elite identities. It was everything we had escaped from repackaged in softer fonts and wellness language. Parents paid thousands to enroll their kids. The website used stock images eerily similar to photos from our childhood albums. We watched from a distance, horrified. Then one of the participants reached out to us. A teenager named Lena. She said she had been locked in a sensory room for refusing to wear assigned clothing. She said they had her on an unsupervised supplement protocol. She sent pictures, recordings, legal documents. Emily and I broke. We contacted our lawyer. We went public. We used our names, our faces, our full story. We went on record. The press descended. Investigations began. Refinement Academy shut down within weeks. Multiple lawsuits followed. Our parents denied everything, claimed we were radicalized, said we had betrayed our roots, but this time they had no control, no narrative to spin, just consequences. We did not celebrate, we grieved. Grieved the family that never truly existed. Grieved the parents we had tried to love. Grieved the version of ourselves that had waited too long to fight back. But we also built. The Plain Project expanded. We hired staff, opened an office, trained volunteers. I taught weekly art classes. Emily led recovery workshops. We lived in a small house with peeling paint and wildflowers in the yard. It was imperfect. It was ours. Some nights we sat on the porch and read letters from people we had helped, survivors, rebels, quiet kids who had found their volume. We read their stories and remembered ours. We stitched our lives back together with truth and stubborn hope. We were still healing, still afraid sometimes, but we were free, finally free. It had been a year of peace when the letter arrived. No return address, just our names typed neatly on 2 envelopes inside a larger one postmarked from somewhere outside Seattle. Emily opened hers first. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a scanned contract, her signature forged, an agreement to participate in a new image rehabilitation program our parents were launching under a shell corporation. Mine was similar. A consent form for hormone monitoring dated 3 months ago. It was not just an attempt to scare us, it was preparation. They were planning something public, something aggressive. That same week, we received an invitation to speak at a wellness conference in San Diego. Our names were on the agenda, our photos too. We had never agreed to it. We traced the organizer. It was a subsidiary owned by one of our parents' clients. We declined, issued a statement, told our community what was happening. Then came the video. A heavily edited clip uploaded by a new account showing spliced moments from our interviews overlaid with narration about the dangers of self-victimization and the loss of family values in modern youth. It painted us as unstable, manipulative, untrustworthy. It ended with our childhood photos. The comments were brutal. We considered legal action. Our lawyer said the source was hard to pin down, but we had a case. Emily hesitated. She said she was tired of fighting, that maybe we should just disappear for a while. I disagreed. I said they would never stop unless we forced them to. We filed a restraining order extension, launched a digital protection campaign. Our supporters rallied. They drowned out the hate with stories of their own, with art, with courage. That should have ended it. But our parents had one more card to play. They bought the building across the street from the Plain Project office, renovated it in record time, opened a studio with a glass front and gold letters that read, Legacy Enhancement Lab. We watched from our second-floor window as they held ribbon-cutting ceremonies and handed out flyers. Their logo was a butterfly. Their slogan was Evolve into Excellence. Clients arrived within days, mostly teenagers, mostly girls, all quiet, all dressed in matching colors. We called the city, called the health board. They passed inspection. Everything was technically legal, but we knew what it was. A performance, a provocation, a threat wrapped in branding. Emily cracked first. She stopped sleeping, started shaking again. I kept my composure in public, but at night I stared at their building and imagined it burning. One morning, we arrived at our office and found the door spray painted with the words, Plain is pain. We installed cameras, hired security, continued our work. But it was harder now, heavier, until one girl walked in. Her name was Nia, 14, big eyes, tense smile. She had enrolled at the lab but ran away on her third day. Said the injections made her dizzy. Said they tracked her meals. Said they told her natural voice was too sharp. She begged for help. Emily held her while she cried. I called our lawyer. That was the breaking point. We filed a formal investigation request with the state, provided testimony, photos, medical records. Within weeks, the lab was under scrutiny. The press returned. Protesters formed lines outside both buildings. My parents called a press conference, claimed they were victims of a smear campaign, showed edited videos, quoted twisted science. We responded with facts, dates, stories, faces. Nia spoke on camera. Others followed. The building shut down after a month. No formal charges. Not yet. But the damage was done. Their reputation fractured. Their supporters dwindled. The last time I saw my father, he was standing outside the shuttered lab, staring at the door like it had betrayed him. My mother sat on the curb, holding a clipboard with nothing on it. I did not approach. I watched from across the street and left before they noticed me. That night, Emily and I made a decision. We were done reacting. We were going to create something permanent, not a project, a movement. We founded a center, a real one, with licensed therapists, art rooms, recovery programs, legal advocacy. We called it the Still House, a place to be without branding, without performance, just stillness, just self. It took 2 years to build, hundreds of hands, thousands of hours. But when it opened, people came, not just survivors, whole families, parents who had made mistakes, siblings seeking reconnection, even professionals who had once enabled the system. They came to learn, to apologize, to begin again. My parents never showed up, but I heard they moved to a smaller town. I heard they stopped filming. I heard my mother took up gardening. I hope that is true. Emily says she no longer needs closure. I am still not sure. Some nights I dream of that kitchen, of the syringe, of her eyes when she said better dead than plain. But I also dream of Nia painting flowers on the Stillhouse wall, of laughter in the courtyard, of truth spoken out loud. And I think maybe this is enough. Maybe surviving was always the point. Not perfection, not revenge, just surviving. Together. Years have passed since that morning in the kitchen, but I still remember the cold tile against my back and the way Emily's voice cracked when she said those words. Better dead than plain. I used to flinch every time I heard someone say the word plain in casual conversation. Now, I smile. Because we reclaimed it. We turned it into something that meant freedom, simplicity, space to breathe. The plain project continues, but we have handed much of it off to others. Brave, younger voices who carry the mission forward. Emily now teaches a course on ethical branding at a local college. I run art therapy workshops at the Still House. We work less now. We live more. Our house is small and cluttered. There are plants everywhere and half-finished canvases stacked against the walls. We cook together most nights. Nothing fancy, just food we like. Sometimes we eat cereal for dinner and no one lectures us about nutritional macros or aesthetic impact. We adopted a dog. Her name is Echo. She barks at the mirror. We laugh every time. Our lives are not perfect. We have days when the past creeps in, when someone sends a link to a resurfaced clip or an old acquaintance reaches out pretending to care. But those moments are fewer now, softer. They do not define us. Emily and I have rebuilt our relationship from the ground up, not as products, not as competitors, as sisters, as survivors. We go on hikes, we argue about movies, we remember birthdays without needing social media prompts. Last year on my birthday, she gave me a framed photo. It was from that first retreat we hosted. 12 teenagers standing in a circle holding hands, faces uncertain but hopeful. On the back, she wrote, "You saved them by saving yourself." I cried for an hour. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had never said no, if I had taken the syringe, if I had let them turn me into a copy of Emily. Would I be successful in the way they wanted? Would I be beautiful by their standards? Would I still exist? I do not know, but I do know this. Plain is not the opposite of beautiful. It is the opposite of false. I would rather be plain and whole than perfect and hollow. Our parents are no longer in our lives. We receive updates through distant relatives. They still speak at niche conferences, still talk about excellence and resilience, but no one listens the way they used to. The world has changed. People are asking better questions. Children are being taught to speak earlier, to trust their instincts, to know when love feels like violence in disguise. The measurement tools have been broken, the graphs erased, the mirrors dulled. Our kitchen no longer has scales or cameras. It has warmth, music, the smell of fresh bread. Emily and I sometimes talk about writing a book, not a memoir, a guide for others, for parents who want to do better, for girls who think silence is safety, for boys who believe performance is love, for anyone trying to claw back their name from the mouth of someone who sold it. Maybe we will, or maybe we will just keep living. That would be enough. Last week, I stood in front of a classroom filled with children holding paintbrushes and told them to make something that felt like home. One boy painted a cracked teacup. One girl painted a forest. Another painted just a circle. When I asked why he said it's just me, I smiled. That was everything. This is not a story of revenge. It never was. This is a story of survival, of choosing stillness over spectacle, of loving the version of yourself no one clapped for. I am Gina Walker. I was held down once, but I got up. I walked away. I stayed plain, and I lived. Sometimes I still walk by mirrors and expect them to scan me. I brace for the numbers, the corrections, the silent disapproval etched into LED feedback. But the mirrors in my life now are quiet. They show me as I am, not as I should be. They do not flash warnings or suggest improvements. They simply reflect. That is enough. Healing is not cinematic. It is not a montage set to music. It is slow, unstable, full of relapses and questions and moments when the old pain feels safer than the new peace. There are days I miss the structure, the clarity of control, but then I remember the cost. I remember the way it felt to be loved only in pieces, to be seen only when curated, to be touched only when changed. And I returned to myself, to the girl who ran barefoot into the street, who bled but kept moving, who did not wait for permission to begin again. There is power in refusing the role assigned to you, in walking off script, in speaking the lines they never wrote. Emily and I are not perfect sisters. We still fight, we still disagree, but now we fight as equals, as people, not as archetypes, not as brands. We know each other's shadows, and we do not try to bleach them out. Our bond is no longer built on shared captivity. It is built on choice. Every day we choose to stay in each other's lives, to hold space, to listen, to laugh. We choose each other, and that choice is louder than any bloodline. I once thought survival was the end of the story, but I was wrong. It is only the beginning. What comes after survival is creation, community, change. The Plane Project is no longer just a name. It is a network, a sanctuary, a mirror for those who have never seen themselves clearly. It lives on in classrooms and courtrooms, in community centers and conversation circles. It lives on in people like Nia, who now mentors others, in boys who cry without shame, in girls who laugh with unfiltered mouths, in parents who ask their children what they want instead of who they should be. I have spoken to so many people now, heard so many echoes of my story in other tongues, in other homes. The shapes change, the pressure stays the same, and still they fight. Still they rise. Still they survive. If you are reading this and feel the weight of someone else's vision for you pressing down on your ribs, know this: you are not alone. You are not broken. You are not plain in the way they mean it. You are the truth they tried to edit out. You are the refusal, the interruption, the breath they cannot control. Stand up. Speak once. Speak again. Walk even if you shake. Run even if you fall. This world will try to sell you your worth in fragments. Do not buy it. You are whole. Even now. Especially now. My name is Gina Walker. I was not made to be exceptional. I was made to be real. That is my legacy. That is my revolution. And if I could go back to that kitchen floor, if I could see my sister one more time with that syringe in her hand, I would still say no. Every time. Because I was never meant to be perfect. I was meant to be free.